Week 11 predictions. You know the list of games that have been postponed. I'm not going to waste your time talking about that. I was very fascinated by them. They may come, they may not. But we got some games that have a lot of interest for us here. And the beauty of our fan base, the beauty of all these fan bases that make up the late kick audience is you'll notice that they kind of care about the sport. You certainly care about your program first and foremost, but the folks who watch this show are also the folks that after your team's played, let's say you have a noon kickoff, you're still there. 3:30 window, 7 o'clock window, probably watching some late night Mountain West 10 p.m. Eastern time kickoff for various reasons. And I don't want to castigate anyone, but for whatever reason, you guys are college football fans, so you kind of care about all this stuff. So you'll be watching this weekend regardless of whether your team's playing or not. If you're a Florida fan, your team's playing. Arkansas at Florida, that's the game we're going to start with. We're going to go around the horn and do a number of predictions here. Florida is a 17-point favorite. This is a Saturday, 7 o'clock kickoff, all times Eastern, even though we sit here in Nashville, Tennessee. This is on ESPN. Now, Sam Pittman, head coach at Arkansas, obviously, he's missing this game due to COVID. I had a lot of you kind of DM me and say, isn't the over at 60 or 60 and a half, isn't the over the obvious play here? I don't know that it's the obvious play at all. I will not have a pick on the total in this game, so I'll spoil the ending for you there. Arkansas is 95th in the country in scoring offense, guys. There is never an obvious over when a team is 95th in the country in scoring offense. Now, I think the way some of you are envisioning this going is you count on Florida getting their points, and then you count on Felipe Franks just having the game of his life. You essentially view Felipe Franks as having the opportunity to do this week what Ian Book for Notre Dame did against Clemson last week. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. I'm not telling you I'm convicted on the under or the over. Quite the opposite. I'm neutral on it. Well, is Florida going to limit mistakes? That's what I'd love to know. If you could padlock stat me maybe a third down conversion percentage for Arkansas, turnover percentage or margin, I'd love to have that because I don't know that this game or previous up to this point, I've really fallen in love with the Arkansas run game. I think they're somewhere 3.5 yards per carry. But that's okay. Because Felipe Franks is capable of having one of those games. I think he's playing right now at about the best level that I've seen him play in his career. When you take everything into account, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later, a little bit more in depth on the show, he's capable of having one of those games against Florida. You know, I kind of thought Bazelak and Missouri may be in that position a couple of weeks ago, and they weren't. Florida ended up running away, brawl and all. They ended up running away. So it's going to be his game, is my point. I don't think they're going to have a ton of success running the ball. It's going to be put on his shoulders. I think he's more than happy to accept that responsibility this week. This is one he's probably had circled ever since the schedule got rearranged. But on the other side, Florida's run game hasn't lit the world on fire either. Fortunately, that's not what their identity is this year. They need adequate production from the run game. They don't need to run it for 250, 275 a pop. So our number on this game, and I didn't even bother having Colin make game capsules, but as I said, the Vegas number is minus 17 for Florida. We've got it even stretched a little bit further at Florida minus 19. But if you followed the show this year, you know Arkansas has been a team who has fluctuated wildly. And our number has not really been able to pin Arkansas down. We really jumped on A&M against them, and we were right there. But last week we took Tennessee, and Arkansas put up 24 in the third. They won the game in the third quarter alone. So I don't have a strong feel on this game. I will take Florida to win the game. I will ever so slightly lean their way to cover, but if I were just throwing darts at a board and I divorced myself from our model, I'd probably give a strong look to the Hogs and the points there. How about Notre Dame? Notre Dame's at Boston College, and I sometimes do the exercise of those of you who have not looked at point spreads already, what would you think the line is on this game? You are fresh off watching the performance of a lifetime from several players on this Notre Dame team, Ian Book in particular at quarterback. And now they go to Boston College. Saturday, 3:30 Eastern, ABC. You'd probably, well, I would guess you'd say somewhere between 17 and 20 would be the line on that game. And it's actually 13 and a half. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. What I don't want you to do is fall victim to thinking you have an edge and mentioning the edges you have that are already baked into this number. I'll tell you what that would sound like. If you have a buddy at the water cooler tomorrow who, in classic fashion, waits until Friday to make all his bets, and he comes up to you and says, hey, dude, Boston College plus the points this week. And I'm going to tell you why. It's a letdown spot for Notre Dame. That's great. That's why people who watch football lose the most money on football, because you think that a lifetime of your wisdom and knowledge from observation of the game gives you an edge over odds makers, but in reality, he didn't just tell you anything that an odds maker didn't already know when they were baking this number. And so they baked all that into this number. That's why they're only favored by 13 and a half. So you better come up with a different angle. I'm not telling you BC can't cover or even win. But if you're going to win consistently, you got to dive a little deeper than saying, letdown spot. Okay, well, mystery solved there. Now, Brian Kelly, if he were to have his way, would have this game look exactly like that Georgia Tech game a couple of weeks ago. Remember when we took the Jackets plus 20? And it was an 18-point Irish lead, and they're driving at the very end of the game, and they get stopped on the 1-yard line, which for our purposes was every bit as memorable as the Alabama-Penn State goal line stand in the 78-79 national championship game, because it meant that we won, and the Ramen Noodle Express chugged on. He wants it to look like that. It's not necessarily the prettiest game, but it's also over in like 2.5 hours. Clock just bleeds all afternoon. They know they have the superior roster. They know talent-wise they are superior. They know Kyron Williams in that ground game should be able to pound away on Boston College and just lean and lean and lean. Dracovic is actually a Notre Dame transfer now that I think about it. He's the quarterback at Boston College. They have a good enough receiving corps to where they are not, lightning all over the place, but it's kind of like a mosquito at a backyard barbecue in the summer. If you don't swat it, it'll just keep buzzing and keep buzzing and keep buzzing around your ear, and it's a pest. Their passing game, their offense at BC, it can pest you to death. New offensive terminology here on Late Kick tonight. So don't get pested to death. And the best way to do that is just bludgeon someone. And I think that's what it'll look like here. BC will not be able to run effectively on Notre Dame. No one really has been. ETN and company couldn't last week. And so it'll be on Dracovic. And I don't necessarily know that that's a spot that's very enviable for many people. So our number here is a little bit shorter. The Vegas number is Notre Dame minus 13.5. Our model only has Notre Dame minus 10. Again, when I have no strong feeling personally on the game, I default to our model. So I'll take Notre Dame to win. I'll take Boston College to cover. Don't feel great about those, though. The pick I do. The spread pick I don't. So that's not an official play for us. Moving on, Wisconsin is a 4.5-point favorite at Michigan. This is a Saturday 7:30 game, prime time. The Michigan Wolverines, baby, for all the world to see on ABC. Maybe you're thinking right now, I don't want to put thoughts in your head. Maybe you're thinking right now, Wisconsin. I've seen Michigan, but Wisconsin. What were they doing the last time I saw them? Oh, that's right. They haven't played a game since their week 1. It was like a Friday night game. Remember, they were one of the first Big Ten games to play. And it was the Graham Mertz show, essentially. And they just bombed away on Illinois in that empty stadium up there. And everyone was freaking out about Graham Mertz and Wisconsin. Me included. I was ecstatic for what that guy was able to do. And he basically went KJ Costello all over Illinois. Well, here's the difference. Maybe here's the difference. Michigan looked good in week 1, too. The difference is Michigan's played football since then. So I was looking at this game, and I had one of you ask me, how is Wisconsin only favored by 4.5? And I said, well, maybe I have an answer for you, because I'll tell you right now, our model has Wisconsin by 5. So our model pretty much agrees with the Vegas number, 4.5, 5. I mean, we're pretty much on point with them. I said, what if Michigan had played their week 1 game just like Wisconsin, but the difference is Michigan stopped after week 1, too. So both of them had taken 2 weeks off. Now, in reality, they would be what they are. Michigan's not all that good a football team right now. They've had more opportunities to be exposed. I don't know what Wisconsin is my point. And they certainly didn't prove themselves as it relates to the rest of the Big Ten schedule against Illinois. So it could be that Wisconsin's ready to roll, and that week 1 sample size was just a preview of what's to come. It also could be that they were in line for a letdown, too. It could just be that volatility is the name of the game in the Big Ten this year. They haven't had the chance to be exposed. I don't know what it's going to be. I can tell you right now, when I watched Michigan last week rush for 13 yards on 18 carries against Indiana, that combined with the very poor, to say the least, corner play for them, I have no confidence in Michigan. This is typically a spot where I'd love to buy ultra low on a generally competitive team. And philosophically, again, if I were forced to make a pick here, I would be taking Michigan in the points, but I'm not forced to do anything. So I'm going to take Wisconsin to win, and I'm going to take Wisconsin to cover. I don't know how anyone has confidence here. Aside from, as I always say, having a model of your own that can forecast turnover margin. And if you guys have that, I would love to buy it from you. But if you don't have that, I don't know where the confidence comes from. Maybe historical data points and precedent. Otherwise, I don't know where the confidence comes from. How about Miami? This is the one that's kind of had a lot of folks scratching their heads. Miami is, they're not favored. You see, I almost said favored. I had the F, and then I stopped myself. Miami's a 2-point underdog on the road at Virginia Tech. As I tell you guys very often, I couldn't possibly care less about the AP. And when I say I couldn't care less, I really mean I couldn't care less. Tonight marked the second time this year I have looked at the AP poll. Once was for research purposes with Cincinnati early in the year. I think it was week 2 or week 3. And tonight marked the second time. I wanted to know what the AP had Miami ranked. Miami's a top 10 team, hashtag top 10 team. I think they're ranked number 9 is what I saw. Maybe that's what has some of you so confused. A top 10 team is facing an unranked team, and the unranked team is favored by 2. I have so divorced myself from AP mentality, I never even know when that's the case. So sometimes you guys are scratching your head, and I don't know why you're scratching your head. Now, I will say this is a noon kickoff on ESPN, so I start looking for reasons here. And I can tell you there aren't all that many of them, but maybe it's a situational dynamic sort of deal. Here's what's going on in Blacksburg. We talk about Virginia Tech in-house here a lot. We got some folks pretty close to that program. The seat is warm on Justin Fuente. Things are very uncomfortable up there. I've got a guy who reports to me directly from Virginia Tech every single day, and every single day in that report, it is things just continue to go downhill here. It really seems like things are unwell. They kind of famously at this point had a GoFundMe to try and oust the coaching staff last year. Typically, that's not the way that comes together. But suffice it all to say, this is not some well-oiled machine that looks poised and ready to strike the way you would normally think a point spread like this would indicate. So what's part B? Is it going to be 34 degrees and snowing and Miami's ill-equipped for it? No, it looks like temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. Now, that is freezing for Miami, but still, they played in Louisville earlier this year, and it wasn't really toasty up there, and they took care of business. Don't have major injuries. Derek King's not out. Here's what is going on, though. Virginia Tech is coming off a loss to Liberty, ranked Liberty. And so Hugh Freeze did a number on them, and you would, again, in classical terms, define this as a do-up spot. Again, in classical terms, very broad-based. I wouldn't really use it for granular betting purposes, but also they did face in the last couple of weeks mobility at the quarterback position. So if you want to make that argument, nothing that Miami floats out there in the form of Derek King offensively, I don't think they're going to necessarily take Virginia Tech by surprise. And, you know, I also remember a couple times this year where Virginia Tech's been able to pop a result on you. So it's all in the back of your mind. Having said that, I look at our numbers because some of you were scratching your head. And you know what? Sure enough, our model was scratching its head too. While Virginia Tech is the 2-point favorite, according to the odds makers, we've got Miami winning the game by 2 points. So much like we had with Florida last week against Georgia, we think the wrong team's favored here. This is not an official play for us yet. Miami's in our gray area. If we were to get 3 on this game, for example, we would want to move on it. Right now it's at 2. Some of you may say 1 point. What's the difference? Probably about 4.5% cover percentage. That's probably what the difference is. So we are going to take Virginia Tech, and we're going to look at them, and they're favored by 2, and we're going to say, no, we want none of that. So we'll take Miami to win, and certainly as well take them +2, and we may maybe end up making that one of our official plays aboard the Ramen Noodle Express. That's why you want to be following me on Twitter at LateKickJosh.